The house loomed, large and imposing. Its dark windows seemed to watch us like eyes peering into our very souls. The mist swirled around it, adding to the eerie atmosphere, making it look like a scene straight out of a horror movie. Blackwood Manor, no one dared go near. The stories about it were enough to keep even the bravest souls at bay. Tales of ghostly apparitions, strange noises, and unexplained events had turned it into a place of nightmares. "Don't even think about it," a voice whispered, sending shivers down my spine. It was as if the house itself was warning us, trying to keep us away from whatever secrets it held within its decaying walls. My best friend, Mark, grabbed my arm, pulling me back. "It's cursed, you know." His eyes were wide with fear, and I could feel his hand trembling. He had always been the cautious one, always warning me about the dangers of our adventures. I ripped my arm free, trying to appear brave. I couldn't let him see my own fear. I had to be the strong one, the fearless leader of our little duo. But deep down, I was just as scared as he was. "It's just an old house, Mark." I tried to sound convincing, but the quiver in my voice betrayed me. The stories couldn't be true, could they? It was just an old, abandoned building, nothing more. But even I could hear the tremble in my voice. The fear was real, and it was growing with every passing second. The house seemed to be alive, feeding off our fear, growing stronger with each step we took towards it. "Just an old house?" Mark scoffed. His skepticism was clear, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. He wanted to believe me, but the stories were too powerful, too ingrained in our minds. "They say it's haunted by the ghost of Old Man Blackwood. The legend was well known in our town. Old Man Blackwood, the reclusive owner who had mysteriously died in the house, his spirit supposedly still wandering the halls, died in there he did. The details were always vague, but the consensus was that his death was anything but natural. Some said he was murdered, others claimed he died of a broken heart. But the one thing everyone agreed on was that his spirit never found peace. Some say he never left. The thought sent a chill down my spine. What if the stories were true? What if Old Man Blackwood was still there, watching us, waiting for us to make a move? The fear was almost palpable, and I could feel it tightening its grip on my heart. The night was young, the air thick with the promise of mischief. We stood, a group of teenagers, daring each other to get closer to the abandoned house. "You wouldn't last 5 minutes in there," taunted Lisa, her eyes gleaming in the moonlight. Something about her challenge sparked a fire in me. "Don't be ridiculous," I retorted, my heart pounding against my ribs. "Prove it," she shot back, a smug grin spreading across her face. "Go on then, spend 5 minutes in Blackwood Manor, alone." Heart pounding, I pushed open the creaking gate, its rusty hinges groaning like a mournful cry. The overgrown path seemed to reach out, pulling me towards the house. A cold wind whipped around me, whispering through the trees. My breath caught in my throat as I noticed it. A faint light flickering from the top-floor window. Someone or something was inside. I stepped cautiously inside, the air thick with dust and the smell of decay. Floorboards groaned under my weight, each step echoing in the silence. A whisper brushed past my ear. "Get out!" I froze, my blood turning to ice. The voice was low, guttural. It seemed to come from the walls themselves. Driven by a morbid curiosity, I climbed the grand staircase, each step taking me closer to the source of the light. The air grew colder, the whispers louder. I reached the top floor and found myself facing a room with a single flickering candle. As I stepped closer, I caught my reflection in an old, dusty mirror. But it wasn't my face staring back at me. It was the face of a man, old, withered, with eyes that burned with a cold, menacing light. Panic seized me, gripping my chest like a vice. My breath came in short, ragged gasps as I tried to make sense of the chaos around me. I stumbled back, tripping over my own feet in my desperate attempt to escape. The room seemed to close in on me, every shadow a potential threat. The candle sputtered and died, plunging the room into an impenetrable darkness. I was left blind, my only guide the sound of my own frantic heartbeat. The whispers were all round me now, closing in like a suffocating fog. They seemed to come from every direction, echoing off the walls and filling my mind with dread. I scrambled to my feet, my hands shaking uncontrollably. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat a deafening drum, urging me to move faster. I raced through the house, my breath catching in my throat with every step. The hallways twisted and turned, a labyrinth designed to trap me forever. The front door loomed ahead, a beacon of hope in the oppressive darkness. It was my only chance, my only way out of this nightmare. I burst out into the night, slamming the door behind me with all my strength. The cool night air hit my face, a stark contrast to the stifling atmosphere inside. I didn't stop running until I was far, far away from Blackwood Manor. My legs burned, my lungs ached, but I couldn't afford to slow down. The fear drove me onward, away from the horrors that lurked within those walls. Safe in the light of my own room, I tried to rationalize what I had seen. The shadows seemed to dance on the walls, playing tricks on my mind. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the racing thoughts that threatened to overwhelm me. It had to be a trick of the light, a hallucination brought on by fear. My mind was grasping for any logical explanation, but the unease lingered, gnawing at the edges of my sanity. My gaze fell on the local newspaper lying on my desk. The paper was slightly crumpled, as if it had been handled with trembling hands. I hesitated before picking it up, my fingers brushing against the rough texture of the newsprint. The headline screamed out at me, "Fire rips through Blackwood Manor." The bold letters seemed to leap off the page, demanding my attention. I felt a chill run down my spine as I read the words over and over again. My blood ran cold as I read on. The details of the fire were horrifying, and the more I read, the more my heart pounded in my chest. It was as if the newspaper was recounting a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. The article mentioned a group of teenagers daring each other to go inside the abandoned house that very night. Their laughter and bravado turned to screams as the fire engulfed the old manor. The image of their terrified faces haunted me. The fire, they suspected, was started by a stray candle, a simple, innocent candle that had somehow sparked a devastating blaze. The thought of it made my stomach churn, but I never made it to the top floor. The memory of that night was hazy, but I was certain of one thing. I had never reached the upper levels of the house. I never lit a candle. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. If I hadn't lit the candle, then who had? The question echoed in my mind, growing louder with each passing second. So who or what did I see staring back at me from that dusty old mirror? The reflection was not my own, and the eyes that met mine were filled with a darkness that I couldn't comprehend. The truth was more terrifying than any ghost story I had ever heard.